If you've tuned into today's podcast episode, there's a strong chance you might be curious around the subject of identity. I believe every single person has a perception of who they are and how they currently see themselves in relation to who they love to become and how they would love to see themselves. For me, identity shapes everything. And I've had some fantastic guests come onto this podcast and speak at our events since I Built to Last around this subject. And today I just wanted to do a really short episode just to remind you of 3 principles and things to think about if you are somebody who has consistent friction around your identity. I think a lot of people we've coached in business, in the entrepreneur world, if I was to ask them who they are, so much of their personal identity would be attached to what they do professionally. And in some cases, if someone's a partner or parent, they would use the words I am and say, I am a father, I'm a parent, I'm a businessman, I'm a investment banker, I'm a property developer. And I think this is where part of the problem is, especially if you're someone listening to this who isn't where they want to be physically, mentally, or emotionally, or at least wants to be a lot closer to where you want to be physically, mentally, emotionally. So I want to make sure by the end of this episode is that you've just got a few more things to think about, or maybe some reminders to think about that are going to help you break free from self-images that you may currently have about yourself that are holding you back and that are preventing you from implementing the actions that are aligned to the person you're trying to become, the body you're trying to build, and the health you are ideally wanting to live with. So the first point is identity is a choice. It really is a choice. Often they are shaped today by self-beliefs that have been formed from an early age and that over time have been conditioned repeatedly. So eventually that creates the image of who you are today. First of all, we need to have a belief to be established. Then we align our actions to that belief, and then it just gets conditioned over and over and over a time. And we all, myself included, have beliefs that are helping us move towards the life we want, the body we want, maybe even the career we want, the finances we want. And then we have beliefs that are self-sabotaging the health we want, the body we want, the life we want. And in order to evolve with our identity, and for me it's a never-ending journey, we have to take responsibility and really take control of the fact that it is our choice and our choice only of who we are. We can never change our identity or evolve our identity if we are blaming circumstance and other people and past failures and limiting beliefs in pursuit of the person we're trying to become. You just cannot change your identity from a place of blame. I've learned the hard way, as I've said on previous podcasts, from the age of 20 to 26. My identity certainly wasn't to be a plumber, and I struggled with that badly because I'd attached my whole identity to being a footballer when it was what I did, not who I was. Identity has to come from within. And you would all have, or you would have personally right now, a description of who you are when no one else is around. Anyone can wear their best suit and portray this image that we are confident, we are happy, we're emotionally in control, we're healthy. But we all know if we're bullshitting ourselves. So the first step to really upgrading your identity is to take responsibility for the fact that identity is a choice. And if you're not happy with who you are right now, you can always change that in any given moment. But it does start with the decision. The second point is too many of us are attached to our old labels. For example, me, footballer, ex-footballer. I had no guidance, no education, no new way of thinking when I was 20, 21, 22, up to 26. That part of the problem that was holding me back in my life was I still looked on myself as an ex-athlete rather than moving forward to who is it I was now trying to become. And as much as what we do, whether it's in sport or business, can shape who we are and how we feel about ourselves, it doesn't have to be the sole description of who we are as a person. So if we are to upgrade our identity, we have to let go of things that are not helping us from our past. It's why so many people transform short-term physically, but not long-term. I spoke about this over and over again on podcasts, on stage, on my social media, because I feel that strongly and passionate about it, that so often people do not see a transformation through or are able to sustain a transformation because they haven't let go of past beliefs, past things that are getting in the way of them being more content and at peace with who they are. And this isn't me saying this trying to create some perfection that everyone has this well-oiled identity or has everything perfect. But if you can truly identify the things that are not helping us from our past, whether it's beliefs, experiences, traumas, if we don't identify these things that have played no benefit to who we are, or certainly not long term, then they'll keep resurfacing. Those beliefs will keep relocating themselves in your relationships, in business situations, and maybe in your health journey. They will encourage reactive behavior rather than proactive behavior and self-sabotage. So ask yourself the question right now, what do you need to let go of from your past? What different meaning can you look at a certain situation from your past to create a more positive feeling, which is going to influence better actions moving forward? The third one is real-time evolution. So I've got in my notes here, as I've just said, it's very much a continuation of the identity shift. Because if you get stagnant with your identity shift, then you'll feel it. You'll feel emotional friction. You probably do stupid stuff that doesn't make you feel good, certainly after doing it. So for me, real-time evolution is aligning your thoughts, your habits, and your peer group with your best future self. I'm pretty sure if you listen to this, if you could wave a magic wand, you would have a dream you, a dream life, a dream physical shape, a dream way of feeling. If you could wave a magic wand, if you knew you couldn't fail, who would you be? How would you live? What would you do? And one of the most simple ways to create momentum when it comes to an identity shift is getting clear on who your best future self would be, who you would love to be if you knew you couldn't fail, and then making sure that your thoughts, actions, and your environment do not contradict that. There's nothing more disempowering when it comes to being emotionally content than living a certain way, doing certain actions, and being in certain peer groups that totally contradict the life we want to live and the person we're trying to become and the body we're trying to build. And this is why, for me, we work so hard inside Built to Last to create an environment and an emotional culture where generally the overarching actions, thoughts, and environment is aligned to positive, growth-minded people who want to be happy physically, mentally, emotionally. They want to be more consistent. As I've said many times before, one of the most undervalued, underlooked way of expanded identity is peer group. I said this on stage a couple of weeks ago. It's the invisible hand that shapes your behavior. If you're struggling right now with really maintaining consistency and really struggling to be, your authentic self, and you might have heard that term a lot, like authentic self. What does that actually mean? It means being true to who you actually are, not living a life based on how others believe you should live, but living a life and implementing daily habits and how you actually want to live. And I think nothing does that more than being in a peer group of people who make that easier to do and those habits easier to implement. So just in summary, because I wanted to keep this short today, if you're struggling or have struggled with breaking free from a poor self-image of yourself, or you continually self-sabotage, or you just can't push through to that next level, maybe with your physique, with your life, the three things to think about are: identity is a choice, let go of your past, and focus on consistent real-time evolution. Align your actions, your thoughts, and your environment to your best future self. And I promise you that journey with your identity will be a lot smoother than getting caught up in the past and passing the buck when it comes to the subject of identity. And just lastly, I wanted to share maybe a bit of a challenge to you if you've listened all this way to this podcast. Commit to a 3-month or 90-day, right, whichever way you want to frame it. Commit to a 90-day identity upgrade where you can set new fitness, lifestyle, and mental standards. What can you do differently that you're not currently doing that's more in line with the person in your heart you would dream to become if you knew you couldn't fail? So if I ask you the question now, if you knew you couldn't fail, how would you look? How would you live? And what would you do? And make sure over the next 90 days that you've got an action plan in place, or certainly a calendar you can look at that has evidence that the way you want to live is aligned to that identity. Because remember, a lot identity comes down to what you do, not what you say you'll do. Right? So what habit do you need to establish and then optimize? What words need to go or outdated? Because remember, the more you label yourself, the more your actions are going to be aligned to that label. What story is outdated? What story needs to be evolved? Or rather than dwelling too much on the past, what would be a story in the next 90 days that you could create about yourself and make sure that your habits and the way you live in are aligned to that? So the subject of identity is exactly what we do inside Built to Last. We don't just transform someone's physiques, we transform how someone sees themselves. So if you are a consistent listener of this podcast, or maybe you're new to this podcast and you genuinely struggle with creating consistency and having a physical, mental, and emotional identity that keeps you content, creates more positive emotion rather than negative emotion, then we can help you do that. We're far more than a physical transformation program. That's easy for us. It's not hard to transform someone physically, but what helps that physical transformation stick is shifting someone's identity, and that requires work on the emotional side, the mental side, and the social side that can influence people's behavior, of course. But we're fully aware of that, and that's called coaching. So if you need help, you know where I am. And as always, I would love to hear your feedback from this episode, and I'll see you next time.